But at that point, dude, I swear to God, punk rock was everything to me. I wouldn't miss a show. I saw every band. I saw Minor Threat, Youth Brigade, 7 Second, American Hardcore on the same bill. I was up front for everything. When the Farm opened up, after the On-Broadway closed, I would go there every single weekend. 7 bands. I would slam dance for fucking 10 hours. I'd run around. I could fucking stage dive. I did a stage dive at Minor Threat where I jumped over the crowd. Like, seriously, I was fucking so stoked. And my friends were like, dude, you fucking disappeared. And I'm like, I know. There was no one there to catch me. Yeah, you're supposed to land on the crowd. I would just be stoked, you know? And when bands would come through, they would ask, like, hey, man, when we play the city, do you think Joe will be there? Because, you know, if you remember when, like, the crowd would be watching me, like, fuck, these guys sucks. I'd always be the guy, like, fucking here we go. I was like the official pit starter. Hey, what's up, kid? What are you working on?
Math.
Can I help?
No.
Why?
Because you're not a smart man.
Who says that?
Everyone.
Everyone's wrong. All right, subtracting fractions with unlike denominators, finding the difference, simplify if necessary. Oh my gosh. Wow, what grade are you in? This is like college stuff right here, dude. Oh, you know what? I'm not gonna be able to do that, babe. Hey, did your brother say I'm not a smart man?
No.
Did Mom? All right, keep working on that. Honey, I am a smart man. It's just the math I don't understand. It's like a word salad. I don't get what you're doing.
What have we become? United in hate. When did we become a divided state? Don't hate me because I'm not like you. Don't hate me, it's just a point of view. When did we become divided by hate? What have we done? Divided state. Don't hate me because I'm not like you.
What's happening, gang, around the world? This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Good to see everybody. What's up, Alan? How you doing, Paulie Pork Chops? Gina, yo, I got to shout out Gina's mom. I think Gina's in the car driving back from Virginia, and they're watching the show with her and her mom are watching the show. So what's up, Ms. Vaccaro? Keep your eyes on the road, Gina. Yo, what's happening up in Canada, Mark? Is it still snowing up there? That said, hope everybody's well. We're gonna have a good show today. It's gonna be great. I don't know what the fuck you're doing with your life, but get ready to have a couple laughs today. It's gonna be great. I'm excited. I'm excited to have a couple laughs. I hope you are too. You know, we need some laughs. One thing about this show, like the pendulum swings this way and that way. So, Larry Kelly, you're driving too. What is this? What am I like? What do they call it? I'm like a driving show. Don't look at me if you're driving. You can listen to me. You can listen to me, but don't look. That said, speaking of driving, you driving that train?
Don't look at me.
Don't look at me.
Look away.
Ah.
Nah, I'm sitting here in a nice quiet spot.
Are you driving that train?
I'm driving high on caffeine.
High on caffeine. There you go.
If ever, for sure.
Woo.
Oh, man. So a couple of things. First, I want to apologize. I missed everybody this week. I had some family issues, and it looked like everyone had an amazing time at the Rampage Fest. And thank you to everyone who reached out. And it looks like every band killed it as usual, and I'm sad I missed it. So,
well, that's sort of that's the segue to photo.
There we go.
We'll look at a few photos. It was a great day. There were no incidents.
Always a good thing.
Per se, and I got to shout out Women of the Pit. It was really enjoyable to co-produce the event with them. You know.
And you know what? It's awesome that we had a bunch of other great photographers there.
Yep.
You know, because I saw some great shots from the show.
Yeah.
And speaking of Women of the Pit, gotta wish a happy birthday to Mei Ling.
Oh, that's right. Mei Ling's coming up. Mei Ling's coming on the show.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I gotta also say that I have not one but two birthdays in Serial Poets, my guitarist and bassist's birthday today as well. So happy birthday to Rob and Chris from Serial Poets.
There you go.
There
So
you go.
here's a couple. Here's the first picture. This is Crossfire, and that's Logan singing, and there's I think, is KK playing bass there? I'm confused exactly what this is, but I do see Logan and KK. So in that case, and that's a rich Zoller photo. Here's another great Rich Zoller, you know. And I was looking at this photo, and it's
that's a nice shot.
All young kids, man.
All the young
Everyone
dudes.
in this picture, I think, is under 20 years old. Pretty much everyone in this picture.
Nice.
And let me tell you something about these kids. You ready? They're a friggin' pain in my ass. but that said, they're a big part of what makes this thing great, you know?
And if the kids are united.
Yeah. If the kids are united, they could torment Drew Stone.
They could torment Drew Stone.
He's easily tormented. That's another Rich Zoller photograph. Here is, you know what? Here's a Michelle Monona photograph. All right. This is a good one. Because, these guys absolutely smushed it. I got to say, this is a band that I'd never seen before.
Uh-oh.
And that's Fahrenheit 451.
Ah.
They were awesome. Fahrenheit was awesome. They were really good.
You're not being serious. You've seen them.
No, I've never seen them.
Really? Wow.
That's sort of their golden age. I was not living in New York for like those.
I thought you were at the H2O show just recently.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I wasn't at that show. No.
They're awesome. Lenny's awesome.
Yeah, here's another one. Here's another shot. Another one of Michelle's shots.
Nice.
Yeah, they were great. Yeah, they did a cover of Fugazi Waiting Room, and it was fucking
that's
great.
cool.
It was really good. They were great. And you know what? I got to give them props. You know what? And you know what? And I'm not going to pull Sid on the show right now and torment him, but they made Sid play a playlist before they played, and it was great. It was like, I forgot what you call it. It wasn't disco. It was like dance stuff.
Like freestyle kind of?
Yeah, freestyle. That's what it was. It was really good.
Oh, that's fun. That's like the
better than that
music.
crappy punk rock shit you play, bro.
Hey, for a clearance here, ladies and gentlemen,
Uh-oh.
Armando from Fahrenheit 451 politely requested those 5 songs
They were great.
And you know what? It was all good.
Could you play less? Listen, in the future, could you play less of that sucky punk rock shit and more
See, now the
disco?
more you say that, I'm just gonna just fucking quadruple down and just play more shitty punk rock just to get on your last nerve, Drew.
I'm into disco now, bro. You can only spin disco on my shows.
That's
In
it.
the words
Silk
of
shirts from now
in the
on.
words of DOA, disco sucks.
All right, we'll talk to you. We'll do album of the week later on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's right. More freestyle. All right. Yep, it was great. I was dancing with my gal. You know.
Where I'm from, there was the Comac roller rink, and they used to play that stuff relentlessly.
And here's a band that absolutely fucking.
I love it.
There
Love
you
the
go.
fade.
Rebelmatic was on, man. They were. Rebelmatic was great.
I love a flying V right there. That's awesome. That's a great shot.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, those guys are there's something special.
Yeah. They were great. Yeah, that said, did you say you're up in my neighborhood tonight?
Yeah, I'm actually heading up
Oh,
to
yeah,
the
I got
beach.
another one. Here's this guy. I got to say, this guy brought it. You know?
Oh, nice.
Yep. Zum was great. And he's like, I'm never playing with my glasses again. I'm like, no shit. Who gets on stage to do a hardcore set wearing friggin' glasses?
Milo.
I'm not
Milo
gonna
from the Descendants.
Right. But
Nice.
the High and Mighty thing we did was great. And Zum was great. Zum was great. I got to give it up.
But did you guys play Road Warrior?
Oh yeah, in the beginning we
Nice.
opened and closed with it. We did like one verse in the beginning and 2 verses at the end.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it was great. It was great. Oh, and here's another one. Got a shout out. Fright came up from Philly, and there's
Wow, that's a nice shot too.
Yep.
Is that a Tim Daly or a Rich Zoller?
That's
a
Rich
Tim
Zoller.
Daly, I think.
No, that's a Rich Zoller.
Ah, that's nice.
Yeah, they were great, and they were really appreciative. They were cool. They're absolutely. And here's a nice group shot, a nice grupas shot of the whole gang there. You know what? I really like Women of the Pit, doing stuff with them because I need help. I need help doing these shows.
I need help.
I need help. Help me.
And more women is always a good thing, especially.
Well, they're helpful, and I need help. It's, it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with, man. Here is one last one. This is Kevin. This is another Rich Zoller shot. This is Kevin from Crossfire and Reaching Out. There's Kevin, So there you go.
Nice.
Yo, you coming up to my neighborhood?
Yeah, I'm actually heading up to the Beacon Theater tonight to see a band called the Airborne Toxic Event, who I love. They are kind of hard to describe what they sound like, but really tremendous band. And this show was supposed to happen during pandemic, and they all rescheduled. So I'm heading out right from here, and I'm going to walk up. As long as it's not raining, I plan on walking from Penn up to the Beacon Theater. It's a nice walk,
You have tickets to this thing?
I have a single ticket, yes. You
Maybe
should
when
go.
It's right down. It's a couple blocks from me, but
Yeah, that's right. Actually, it's
bro. Honestly, at this point, I fucking hate music, bro. I can't even sit. It's like I can't sit through this shit anymore, man. I'm like, I got like if you have a band, you got 30 seconds with me.
Impress me.
Like anything short of like a human sacrifice or a Roman orgy, I'm sort of like, yeah, all right, whatever.
Well, I didn't want to tell you, but that was actually on the set list tonight.
I'm just kidding. I could. We'll see. Listen, Beacon, yo. I grew up. We used to when we were teenagers. It was sneak in the Beacon.
Sneak in the Beacon,
dude. We used to like as juvenile delinquents. Whatever was at the Beacon, we'd go down to and sneak in. Like I snuck into like back in the 80s. Like, oh, who's playing the Beacon? Johnny Winter? Yeah. Fucking. I saw everyone from Johnny Winter to Suxy and the Banshees to Hot Tuna to God, it's everybody at the forget the Allman Brothers Band. Ugh.
Yeah.
I saw the Allman Brothers Band so many times at the Beacon, I could almost get on stage and play those songs.
Yeah, well, they do like 10 dates at a time usually when they go there.
Yeah, they used to kill it. So all right, cool.
I'm ready to laugh.
What?
I'm ready to laugh.
All right.
I know this is going to be a good one.
I'll see you in a bit. All right. At ease, soldier. You asked for it, you got it, often imitated, never duplicated. Clank your chains and count your change. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, the Texas Silver Rush, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards. Excuse me. DTFM Vinyl Distro, Generation Records, 126 Hardcore Clothing, and located in Corpus Christi, Texas, Chacho's Tacos. Opened their doors in 2001, home with the almighty Chacho's Taco. They cook up an incredible home-style Tex-Mex food, and this month they're celebrating their 20th anniversary. They've been supporting underground music since the beginning. In their own words, we ain't stopping anytime soon. Touring bands that play Corpus Christi, swing by and get a home-cooked meal at Chacho's Tacos. We got you. The underground scene will never die. Please follow us on Facebook or on Instagram. Come on now, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, located in Lakewood, Colorado, is the Rocky Mountain headquarters for all things punk, hardcore, and metal. Established in 2014, they have the largest selection of records, CDs, shirts, stickers, patches, and accessories between Chicago and Los Angeles. From the pit to the ditch, they got your back. Get in touch with them at www.chainreactionrecords.com. Last but not least, come on now, 126 Hardcore Clothing is a streetwear brand for restless individuals who don't compromise. They're about being positive, spontaneous, and true to yourself. I'm positively negative. For years, they experimented with several printing methods and materials and collaborated with a large number of designers and illustrators, always giving room for fresh perspectives while retaining the hardcore attitude. Get in touch with them. Ramp up your weak-ass clothing game at www.126clothing.com. That said, let's bring our guest on. You know what? I want to do you know what? Let's do the next 4 shows real quick. The next 4 shows. Yes, coming up. There's a special bonus show. Bonus, because we all love sitting around doing these shows. This Friday, Cousin Joe's coming on the show. We're going to talk about the show upcoming in the park. And of course, we'll do a little bit of a real reveal for the Black and Blue Bowl. That's this Friday, April 8th. A couple days after that, Matt Melnick's coming on a show. Dark Side, NYC, Download and Disassociate. Then Sunday, April 17th, Eugene from Gogo Bordello will be on the show. Wednesday, April 20th, Doug Caron from Field Day, Descendants, Cottonmouth Kings, and Dag Nasty. Lots going on. Get your shoes and socks on, kids. It's right around the corner. What else? Everybody ready? Let me see. Everybody good? Let's see. Everybody's good. Okay, here we go. Let's bring our guest on. Let's do this. All right. Today's guest is an American musician and comedian hailing from the Garden State of California. As a musician, he's known for his work with the bands Wax and 22 Jacks. He is also, for over 25 years, the co-founder of the record label Side One Dummy Records. Please welcome, coming at us from San Jose, California, Mr. Joe Sib. Hey.
What's up? How are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Dude, I love that intro.
Hey, man. What's happening in San Ho?
You know, San Jose's still holding strong. NorCal, buddy. NorCal. You know, it's good to be back. You know, I'm actually out here. It's the reason I'm here is my mom passed away in January, so we're having the memorial for her this weekend.
Oh wow!
But I don't want to bring anyone down because my mom was super cool. Lived to be like 81. Died in her sleep. I mean, went out strong. We had our last drink together at the pub during Christmas. You know, she would take 2 Irish coffees. She would ask for one, but separate them into 2 so we could hang longer. So, you know, it's definitely, I'm fortunate because anyone listening that's ever lost a parent, you know, you wonder when that moment happens, what it'll be like. But I was super, super grateful that her and I dialed it in. So when she split, as much as I'm sad, I'm also grateful that she didn't have to go through a lot of what our friends' parents go through. So we're having a party. We are having, you know, she's Catholic, Irish. So we're having a mass, you know, we're going for it. And we got music, videos. It's going to be a celebration. I'm here.
That's a good, listen, you know, when someone's lived a full life, it's good to celebrate that life. You know, I mean, if you've gone through, which I have, when someone passes away young, it's tough when they haven't had a full life. But, you know, when someone's had a nice full life and they're leaving a legacy, you celebrate that, you know?
The best thing, Drew, I was talking to her and I remember, you know, we're talking to Mom, like, you know, when she turned 80, you know, I was like, Mom, you know, she's like, I get worried sometimes, you don't know how much longer you're going to be around. And I said, well, you've been around 80 years, you know, you've had a great run. She's like, remember that if you live to be 80, you don't think that way.
Right.
You know?
So what's the latest, man? How's the pandemic treating you? Like,
dude,
what's new? What's new and exciting?
You know, being here in California, you know, we held it down pretty tight. You know, it depended on different cities that you were in. If you're in LA, they were masking up, still are masking up here and there. It's really, I feel like California is one of those kind of states that really, depending on where you are, if you're in Fresno, there's going to be a different energy than, say, if you're in San Diego. If you're in San Diego, it'll be a different energy than if you're in San Francisco. But for the most part, during the pandemic, I was locked down in San Diego, and it was, if there was one place to be, I was grateful to be in San Diego. And when we kind of,
I guess you got to spend some time with your kids.
Dude, let's put it this way. I got to know more about my family. Like, let's say, I'll just tell you this right now. There's no need for family vacation ever again. Like, I'm never going to say, oh man, I wish I could have spent more time with you guys when I split. I got my money's worth. We don't need to do anything. The thing that was a trip too was I live in San Diego now, and I live in Little Italy. And my dad lives in Little Italy. So my dad, you ready for this? My dad and I spent the whole pandemic together, like hanging, drinking coffee, drinking wine, having dinners together for the entire time. So him and I now, we went to this next level in our relationship. It was so awesome.
I did the same thing with my dad. This show was launched from Delray Beach, Florida, from Arnie Stone's kitchen, And I was stranded there, and I was with Dad for 3.5 months, and I started this show, and I was with him it was great.
Yeah,
it was great.
So the pandemic for me, and then once we kind of opened back up, and I started going back out on the road touring, it was different. You'd go to different parts of the country, and some people were keeping it super tight, and others weren't. I mean, for me, honestly, the best part of the pandemic for me was just getting that opportunity, as a lot of people said, to, take a step back and not feel guilty about it. Because you know how it is, like you're going through life and you're looking, oh, wow, Drew Stone just did a new movie. Oh, he's starting a new band. And then you're looking, I'm not doing anything. This was the first time ever that you could just chill and be like, you know what, man, I don't have this pressure to be doing things constantly. So that part was cool.
Yeah. Are you out on the road right now? Don't you have something cooking right now?
Yeah, I'm currently out on the road. We just finished the first leg of the Lars Frederiksen tour. Yeah. So there are the dates right there. Yeah, we start back up in Chicago.
You did the West Coast.
Yeah. So we start back up in Chicago at Reggie's, and then we're coming out to Brooklyn. There's a date on there after the 29th where I'll be out your way. I'd love to see you, Drew. I'll be in Brooklyn on the 30th, and then I'll be doing some spots around the city. But yeah, this tour with Lars Frederiksen's been a blast because, Lars and I grew up when we were kids. I was friends with his brother, and I'm a few years older than Lars, and Lars went to the same high school as me. So we just became friendly, and as him and I both pursued, playing in bands, me and Wax, him and Rancid, because Wax and Rancid were super tight. Our first Wax video, Lars and Tim are actually in it. Wow. So they were always a huge supporter of Wax. And then, so when actually this tour with Lars, when I started doing stand-up, Lars would come out to my shows in the city. Whenever I come to San Francisco, he'd come out to the shows. And at a certain point, he was like, I'm going to be doing this solo thing. I'd love for you to open up. And it's cool because, I've opened up over the years, I've opened up for Jesse Malin. I've opened up for Brian Fallon. And I've opened up for different bands, but it was kind of before comedy, is where it is today. I feel that right now comedy with, guys like Kyle Kinane, that so many people see at places like Fest or even Punk Rock Bowling, like comedy and music have always intersected, but right now kind of our generation of punk rock and hardcore, there's a lot of people that from our scene that are into comedy. And then, there's a few guys that were actually in bands, like Kyle Kinane, played bass in a band out of Chicago, and he's one of my favorite comedians. And, now I think a lot of people are like, oh, wow, it's one of our guys from our community doing stand-up. So it definitely on this tour,
I think Henry Rollins, to me, I think what Henry does, I'd say is almost like improv. I don't know if it's comedy, it's improv, but Henry's doing it. That's cool.
He's been doing it forever. The thing I remember I hadn't ever seen Henry, and when I started about 12 years ago, a lot of people were like, I think because maybe me, being from the punk rock world, they thought maybe it'd be kind of a Henry Rollins-esque type of thing.
Yeah.
And then I remember I'd never seen him perform, and a friend of mine said, "You got to come with me to see Henry." And I went to his show at the Largo in LA,
Sure.
and I was expecting the serious
Like,
Henry Rollins. Like,
yeah.
I drink coffee.
Yeah.
I work out.
I was in Black Flag, and it
Yeah.
was serious.
And dude, he came out, man. Drew, I'll tell you right now, he had that audience. We were rolling. He was obviously doing storytelling and spoken word, but man, he was funny, and it really inspired me. And it was funny. I remember when I first started doing when I was doing comedy, and I kind of first started out doing it was storytelling, spoken word / comedy. And I had known Henry from a radio station that both of us were on, and he was a DJ, I was a DJ. So we would cross paths, and I'd known him over the years, and we got friendly where we would talk about different things. And I remember at one point I sent him a clip of me doing this show I was doing called California Calling. It was the first thing I was doing, and I sent it to him to invite him to come to the show. And in typical Henry fashion, he wrote me back an email, and it basically said, I appreciate you sending this clip. I have watched, and I cannot attend your show, but what did he say? He said, please continue with what you are doing. And it was so Henry, I think he might even have said this form of communication is working well. Please continue,
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, it was like getting it. It would be like if you were a priest and you got an email from God, okay, continue.
Yeah. So I want to put this photo here. We're talking about Lars. You got to give us this is a great shot you sent me. Give us what's the story here?
Okay. This is about probably 1983. It's in a backyard in San Jose, California, actually Campbell, California. The guy's house, I can't believe I remember this. The kid's house, Ronnie Tannehill. I can't believe I remember that. Isn't that funny? If you ask me right now, hey, dude, tell me the capital of I don't know, of Texas. I'd be I don't know.
Mom, I'm going to Ronnie Tannehill's house.
Oh my God. Dude, the reason that there was this party going on at Ronnie Tannehill's, I swear his parents were in Europe all the time. So we had the most raging parties. It was this, you remember those kids that just had a house, but no parents? You're you just really, dude, where's your family? So, so we're at Ronnie Tannehill's, and that night there was this band that's actually playing. This is the Faction. Over there on bass, you have Steve Caballero. You got guitar, Adam Baum. He'd be a great guy to have on your show. You got Keith Rendon on drums, Gavin O'Brien on vocals. And that night, the Faction played, Ribsy played, and the Necros were in town. So the whole reason we're all in this backyard is the show with the Necros got canceled. You remember, you'd have a show booked, guy would pull the plug, no way. So
let me interject this. Fred De La Cruz. I'm just setting this up.
Yeah.
It's a setup. From Silent Sequels Death says, forget the cinder block. Just have a punk sit there.
There you go. Dude, Fred knows. Well, check it out. So basically what ends up happening is at this particular show that was going to get canceled, and this is what I loved about growing up in San Jose. And I tell people this, and sometimes it's hard. It's when you're what I love about the punk rock world that we grew up in, and I feel we're so fortunate. The New York scene, the Chicago scene, the Northern California scene, and the scenes that I wasn't even a part of, there was such a do-it-yourself attitude that everyone had. And I feel sometimes when you share that with people that didn't grow up in it, they feel it's a strange conversation to have, that you would say, hey, bands came to town, the show got canceled, we decided to do it ourselves. Because if you're into metal at that point and you're like, hey, dude, I went to go see Van Halen, they canceled, no one's having Van Halen play at their house. But when you're a punk rocker, you're like, well, dude, we still have to have the show. Ronnie Tannehill, are you down? So basically,
excuse me, can I play the role of Ronnie Tannehill?
Yeah, totally.
Bro, my parents are in Europe.
Dude, how about this? It's more like this. Yo, Ronnie Tannehill's parents are in Europe. Let's do the show there. So the thing that ended up happening,
ding dong.
Yeah. So the best part about it was we still put on the show. So in this particular photo, at this point, the Faction were the fourth band on that night. 5 bands played. The Necros are about to go up. But the reason that little kid is sitting in the drums is because, as you know, Drew, the bass drum's always sliding around. So at first you try to put a brick in front of it, doesn't work. Then I think they tried to nail some wood into the cement. That didn't work. Then they tried to put some more heavy, like a chair in front of it. That didn't work. And finally, there was this kid that was rolling around and they just grabbed him. And they're like, yo, dude, sit in these drums. And the dude sat there. That kid right there sat in those drums that night for all 6 bands. And the crazy part of it is that kid that sat in those drums for those 6 bands, when people see that photo, if they're a parent, they're like, man, that's like child services would show up at your house if you did that. The kid's 11 years old. He's a little kid. That kid is Lars Fredriksson. He turned into Lars Fredriksson. So I always say, what happens if you sit in front of the bass drum for 6 bands? You turn into Lars Fredriksson, tattoo on the forehead, you join Rancid, end of story.
Yeah, you can't say he didn't do his time in the trenches.
Dude. Right? And I always love the photo because I'm in the back scared. That's me in the back scared.
Just like, yeah.
I'm probably waiting for Ronnie Tannehill's parents to come home. We're going to get busted.
Yeah. So did you grow up in a musical household? Like, how did music come into your life?
I mean, for me, dude, music for me was always on, like even at when we're talking about my mom's funeral, we're putting together all the music that she would always have on. And back, for her house, it was always like anything from like Jerry Vale to Elton John, everything in between, Engelbert Humperdinck, Elvis, that was all the stuff that I grew up with as a kid in the household, that we had. As I grew older, I started getting into different styles of music, but I didn't really discover punk rock until my parents got separated. My dad moved to San Jose. There was a skateboard park in San Jose called Winchester Skateboard Park. And I grew up skating my entire life. And at that point, my dad just needed a way to entertain me. He was like, man, where can we take Joey that, I can get a break on the weekend? And basically he said to me, hey man, there's a skateboard park by my house. Do you want to, go and check it out? Now, at that point, Drew, I'd skated in Santa Cruz and, I'd never seen a large group of skateboarders. So when we pulled in that parking lot, it was 1980. Gosh, at that point, it's like 1981. Woo! And there's a full crew of skaters in there. At the time, I didn't know it. Steve Caballero's home park. So I roll in there with my dad. At that point, I got a bowl haircut, a turtleneck on. I think ABBA. I think the Village People are cool. Like, I don't know anything about music. I just like hit songs, I guess. And I remember my dad talked me into skating in there, and I was super like nervous about doing that. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. And he's like, look, let's try it for 15 minutes. If you don't like it, we never have to go back. And basically that 15 minutes turned into a lifetime, because at that park, besides having a lifetime love affair with skateboarding, I'm 55 years old. I still skate. In fact, last night I watched the Tony Hawk Until the Wheels Roll Off documentary or fall off. So good. So good. Just came out last night. But my point is, going into the skateboard park, that was where I heard Black Flag, 999, Circle Jerks, every band that really set me on my path. And between like I loved skateboarding, but the music was really what drew me, because I would go over to where this boombox was in the back of the skate park, and this guy had all these cassettes, and I spent a couple weeks getting closer and closer to where this music was coming from, till finally I asked him, hey man, like, what is this? And he was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, this music you're playing. And he was, at that time, it was like he's playing something from 999. And I was like, what is a 999? And he just started, hey, this is just turning me on to different music. So it was a really unique time in my life, because at that point, I'd only listened to my parents' music. I'd never had my own music.
I've said this on the show many times too, and we're about the same age. Is like, we grew up on FM radio, and FM radio was very vibrant in those years. It was everywhere. So there was a big, guys our age kind of have this musical soundtrack of FM radio. Totally. But then there was what was happening underneath. And you're a West Coast dude. I'm an East Coast dude. And in the skate park, at the skate park on the West Coast, all that stuff was bubbling under then, right? The Black Flag, Circle Jerks, TSOL, VOA, right? All that.
Yeah, I mean, for us on the West Coast, see, the thing that was a trip was, at that point, though, when I first started going to the skateboard park, Boston was the record that everyone was listening to, AC/DC. Yeah. It was like everyone was listening to all of that. So all of a sudden, Van Halen, the first record, that's what people were listening to. Now, that record, obviously, it came out before I was at the park, but like, I ended up getting in there I always say I was kind of in the right place at the right time when punk rock hit the suburbs, because I wasn't there for the first wave of bands. I wasn't there for the Ramones. I mean, I love the Ramones. I love the Clash. I love all that stuff, but that's the first wave. I was in the right place at the right time for that second wave of like Adolescents, Black Flag, Circle Jerks, the stuff that happened after the Germs. That was really like, even though the Germs and the Adolescents were around at the same time and Black Flag and all that stuff, but for me, that wave of Southern California bands, TSOL, I mean, everything on Frontier Records, I loved. I mean, that was really it. And then, of course, the compilation Rodney on the Rock, that was the first place I ever heard Agent Orange, all those bands. So that really, for me, that style of music, that Southern California punk rock was so influential. But also growing up in San Jose, we were so lucky to be near San Francisco. So, as bands like Verbal Abuse, America's Hardcore, then you had to go further up to Reno, 7 Seconds. I mean, that band
was 7 Seconds big in your world?
Oh God, totally. Because the first time I ever see 7 Seconds, Minor Threat comes out on that first tour. Yeah. And they do a run of dates through San Francisco, and they end up at the On Broadway. And the On Broadway was like the premier club, and it was I'll never forget it. It was Minor Threat headline, and then it was Youth Brigade, and then it was 7 Seconds as a 3-piece. Kevin was playing guitar, and then you had America's Hardcore open up the show, and it might have been Youth Brigade. 7 Seconds flipped around, but I'm pretty sure Youth Brigade closed, and Youth Brigade was like, America's Sham 69. I loved, Youth Brigade. I turned 16 at a Youth Brigade show. The Stern Brothers, I love those. Those guys were like,
that's some real West Coast shit.
Yeah.
Youth Brigade.
Yeah. That was Youth Brigade. I would say for me, the most influential bands for me growing up, lyrically, it would be, definitely it would be 7 Seconds and Youth Brigade. I was really into what they were all about. And then the delivery as vocalists by far was Keith Morris, Circle Jerks, and Tony Cadena, Adolescents. That I loved Tony's vocals. I loved Keith's attitude, look, and sound, but then I loved the lyrical content of, say, 7 Seconds Youth Brigade. And then that was really what I loved. But then, of course, for us on the West Coast, we loved Minor Threat. That was that, when Agnostic, I remember seeing Agnostic Front the first time they came through. The first time I ever saw Murphy's Law, they came through with, it was a great bill. It was the Ramones and Murphy's Law. Or actually the very first time I saw Murphy's Law was Murphy's Law, Fishbone, Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
That was the first time I would say, looking back on that experience, I'll never forget it. I was going to De Anza College. I just graduated from high school. And I remember the Beastie Boys record comes out, and Fight for Your Right, or, the first record, No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
License to Ill.
License to Ill. Yeah. That record comes out, it explodes. And we're like, okay, this is different. And you remember back then it was like, this is pre-internet, like it got out. Hey, dude, these guys are like, they used to be in a punk band. So immediately you're like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And then, you're into it. It's being played at the parties. Okay, cool. They roll through, and then they bring this band Murphy's Law and Fishbone, which we'd all heard about. And I'll never forget, dude. They roll up onto our campus, at De Anza College, tour buses. And like, I remember the Murphy's Law dudes are walking around, and you could just, dude, the whole vibe of the entire campus changed because this East Coast presence between the Beasties and Murphy's Law with, like, I remember it was like dudes with like Adidas with pegged Levi's and like fedoras and like wife beaters. And, like we hadn't seen anything like that. You're like, dude, the only dude that had a wife beater was Mike Ness from Social D. You're like, whoa, dude. And then like these guys had these shades on, and like, it was like, wow. Like, and they came in, dude. And I remember they're walking around the campus, And I remember at the time I had a girlfriend, you know, and like everyone's just holding on to their chick. Like, dude, these guys are here to like
East Coast guy, New York guys.
Dude, yeah. I don't even think you say East Coast. You say New York guys.
Yeah.
You know, and they were so cool. And I remember all of us went to the show that night, and Murphy's Law came out, and just, you know, you got Jimmy, Todd Youth, they just crushed it, you know, and like none of us had ever seen a band really act like that on stage. You know, like everyone would come out, they do their show, but like, you know, incorporate the audience and just, you know, go nuts. And then when Murphy's Law came back a few years later, opening for the Ramones, San Jose, we were ready. And that was with that show that the Ramones, Johnny kicked Murphy's Law off the bill because Jimmy was pulling people on stage and we were all going crazy, and Johnny was not having it. And I remember there was a moment where Murphy's Law was kicked off the tour, and Johnny was like, I don't want him on the tour. And my band actually got a phone call, Frontline, hey, Murphy's Law is off, you know, can you guys fill in for them? And then Johnny and from what I understand, you know, Jimmy and them worked all out.
That reminds me of when I was in Boston in '81 and we were ripping it up, you know, when I was part of that whole crew at Boston, you know, SSD Control.
Yeah.
I was part of that original Boston's.
Yeah, the Dickie and what's his name from Thrasher, and I see all the photos. I follow
Jake. It was, you know, Jake Phelps and Dickie and me and Dave Smalley. But we used to like, I'm not sure how or why, but there were certain shows that we would go to and just wreck. Like we would go to like the Cramps, like, oh shit. And we would go like 15 of us to the Cramps and just get on the dance floor and just devastate. Right. So the Ramones were playing in the Tufts College Gymnasium. And we went, it was like in the gym at Tufts, which is like some, you know, kind of like uptight, you know, college. And we went and we got in there and we just ripped it up. And I remember Johnny Ramone was just flabbergasted, like appalled, like they were freaked out, like about the whole thing. This wasn't dancing. We were ripping it up. And, we were destroying each other out there. And I remember him being really like, what the fuck is this? You know, and not having it and not being happy about it at all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, the thing for us though was, you know, when Murphy's Law came through with the Ramones, you know, the way Jimmy was on stage and the way Murphy's Law was, I mean, hell, they were barbecuing with half of San Jose before they even went on stage. So all of us, you know, we were like, you know, we were all super psyched. And, you know, at the end of the day, it was just that was the kind of thing that I feel really lucky to be a part of. There definitely was growing up this attitude, at least in our scene, that there was really no difference between the audience and the band.
Absolutely. So how does all this translate into you at the mic as a young person? Like how did you end up fronting a band? And which band is this? This is early on.
Yeah, this is my first band, Frontline. And that's a photo that Murray Bowles took. Murray was a super amazing individual. If you know, Maxim Rock and Roll, he had a book out, If Life's a Bowl of Cherries, Why Am I in the Pit? He took photos of all the bands in Northern California. Super, super cool guy. He passed away about 2 years ago, but he took this photo of me, and it was before Gilman Street. And it was at a venue before Gilman Street that the people from Maxim Rock and Roll had started. And, you know, for me, dude, I started out as a bass player, and but I wanted to be a singer, and I wanted to be a singer. I think at that moment right there, I'm definitely channeling my inner, you know, GBH 7 seconds / you know, I mean, the Mohawk would definitely be my love for, you know, all the bands that were coming over from England at that point, you know, GBH, Peter and the Test Tube Babies, Exploited. And then, you know, of course, the NorCal sound, because, you know, our bass player's got a flannel on. That was kind of a prerequisite before you went on stage. You know, we were grunge before we knew it, you know.
Eric Johnson asks, Wasn't there another band called Frontline and changed their name to SJ's Frontline?
That's our band, bro. That's it. He's got it. God, I love that he
Yeah.
remembers SJ's, because you know what SJ stood for? San Jose's, bro.
That's what I figured.
Yeah. SJ's Frontline. San Jose's Frontline.
And then our boy Ryan Bland from Egg says, not to be confused with the New York band Frontline.
Ryan's completely
Yeah.
correct. You
Yeah,
know, I think what Ryan's noting is that a lot of us came up with the name Frontline. So you had because the reason, so it's funny, there was a band obviously out of New York called Frontline, and then there was a band, there was another band that was like a reggae band called Frontline, and that's why we were SJ's Frontline.
It's like we're the People's Liberation Front, like in Life of Brian. We're the Liberation Front of the People. No, now we're called. Yeah. So we got a lot of.
We got a lot of bands called Frontline. We're gonna do a Frontline festival. Anyone that was ever in a band called Frontline is gonna play.
Everybody gets channeled, like channeled down the same thing, right? It's like, I got a great idea for a band name, Frontline.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in California, here
we
got
are.
a great name for a band, Frontline.
Yeah.
So, so that said, you're in Frontline, and then I guess
that was the first band. The first band is Frontline, and then that kind of, you know, I do Frontline, and at that point we were really fortunate because, and this is kind of like, we got lucky in the sense that at that point bands like Verbal Abuse, the Adolescents had gotten back together, so they were doing shows again. Verbal Abuse, we were really tight with that crew from San Francisco because we had done a lot of shows with them at this place called The Farm. And then what ended up happening was bands like the Adolescents, bands like 7 Seconds, bands like that Circle Jerks, they were all touring again in 80, 85. And what ended up happening was I just would be relentless with asking about, hey, can we open next time you come? Right. I remember I stayed in touch with Rick Agnew. I called him at home and he said, hey man, we're coming up to do a show. You guys can open. So with Frontline, we started opening for a lot of bands. And one of the first tours I ever got to go on with was the Circle Jerks. They took us on this West Coast run, which was great. And that's how I got to meet Hetson and that crew and Keith and all of them. And then later on, we became friends with the Vandals, and the Vandals took us on like a really long tour.
That's some real West Coast shit. The Vandals.
Yeah, the Vandals. Yeah. So for us, it was like, when I say a long tour, it was like 10 days. And, you left California, so you couldn't believe it. But at that moment, it was a big deal for us, and we ended up doing a lot of different shows with a lot of those bigger bands. And I feel like Frontline really had a great run. We made an EP on IM Records, which was the record label that the guitar player from The Faction owned. He put our record out, and that was super special because at that point in San Jose, to have a record out, the only bands that had done it was The Faction and kind of a few other bands that were starting to record. So all of a sudden we had this 6-song EP out, and as bands do, we started growing. And then when that band finally came to an end right around 90, right around there, that was when I hightailed it down to Los Angeles from San Jose and started living down there.
And how and when, hold on, let me clear the deck here. How and when does, I know we're skipped a couple years here, but how and when does sort of Wax come into view?
Wax comes into view because basically, that's a funny photo. That's actually in Northern California at a place called that was for a festival called BFD, and that's at this place called Shoreline Amphitheater.
Oh yeah,
and I do not know what maneuver I'm doing right there with my hand, some sort of karate maneuver.
I know where that is. That's behind. That's
behind it.
That's backstage. Behind that. Yeah. I know exactly where that is.
Yeah. So basically, with Wax, what ended up happening was Frontline, ends. I have a buddy of mine that lived in LA, Brian Ray. You might know Brian Ray because he does the books Fucked Up and Photo Printed. He did that first. Yeah, he's amazing. He just did the shirt book. So him and I grew up together. We all went to high school together, and basically I lived with him, and he said, you can come to LA, sleep on my couch for a month, but you got to get it together. And while I was living with him, I got a job. found a place to live in LA. And then I was like, all right, I want to try to find a band. And once again, kind of in the right place at the right moment. These guys were from Chicago, and they were looking for a singer. We started hanging out, and one thing led to another, and it was like, hey, let's jam. And that's how Wax all came together.
And this was like 92, 93 ish.
No, this is like, because our first record comes out in 92. So this is
right.
This
90,
is 90.
Yeah,
this is like 90. Like we meet each other in 90. We start hanging. We start doing shows 91, and then we put out our first record on. We got signed to Caroline Records, and the first record came out in 1992.
Right, and was that California?
No, actually, the first record is.
What else can I do?
Record, what else can we do? Yeah. And then basically we tour on that record relentlessly. And you got to remember, at this point, what's happening musically right now is Pearl Jam, Smashing Pumpkins, like really heavy alternative type stuff. And like what we're doing is, like punk rock influenced by like the Replacements, and like these guys are influenced by a lot of the Midwest stuff. The guitar player, heavily influenced by the Pixies. Me and the bass player, the guy with the sunglasses on, we're influenced by like everything from the Clash to the Ramones. And then our drummer, Loomis, he's influenced by everything that I just listed. He loves everything from like, Naked Reagan to the Pixies to the Kiss. It's like, he's like, all right. And it really was an eclectic group of guys, because what was cool was all three of these dudes, or all four of us, could have fronted the band. Like I'd never been in a band where each guy had a personality and knew how to carry it. So when I joined the band, I knew like, wow, man, like this could be something special. And then as soon as we started writing together, we were all influenced by so much different music that we kind of came up with this unique sound. And then also the thing that I kind of brought to the table was, with my experience of being in Frontline for as long as I had, these guys hadn't booked shows yet. They hadn't gone on tour. Like I'd already, by the time I meet these guys, I've already been to CBGB's and back. I've touched the East Coast multiple times. So these guys, when I joined the band, I'm like, this is how you got to do it. We got to tour. We got to make shirts. We got to go here. And they were just like, but the thing that was great was they brought so much to the table musically, and they brought so much to the table, on stage.
We always say it, man. Different people bring different things to the party, and that's what makes the whole.
It really worked, and that's why I think the success of Wax, in a short amount of time, we got a record deal, and then after our first deal with Caroline, there was a downtime where we didn't have a record company, and then we ended up putting out our record ourselves, and we got picked up by Interscope, and that was the California record that ultimately blew up.
Now, a lot of people, when they think of Wax, of course, they associate and think of the band with that incredible video that Spike Jonze did, with the dude running down the street in slow motion. And I mean, that was all over MTV at the time.
Yeah.
Was that an exciting moment there to sort of like have that like kind of blowing up? And did you have any connection with Spike, or did the label just kind of connect you with him?
No, that was all us. I mean, to answer the first question was it exciting? Fuck yeah. It was so exciting. I mean, here we were, these, we're all 23, 24 years old, 25 maybe. And all of a sudden, our connection with Spike was through skateboarding and through music. Sure. Spike was, when I met Spike, we were skating a curb together at an Arco station on Melrose and Highland. And my friend said, you should meet my friend Spike. He's cool. Our bass player was friends with him. And Spike always had his camera.
Hey, excuse me. Isn't that right close where your office is? Melrose?
Yeah. We were right down Melrose. Yeah. Years later. Yeah.
I've been there. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the connection with Spike basically kind of came about. Well, it did come about because of music, skateboarding. And at this point, he's not Spike Jonze. He's just our friend that has a camera.
Skate dude.
Yeah. He took a lot of photos for a lot of different magazines, and he was just a well-respected photographer. And then what ended up happening is when we got signed to Caroline, we basically had an opportunity to do a video. And we knew a bunch of dudes out in Chicago, and they were just these guys, Eric Matthews, and just all these cats out there. And Spike was going to direct it, and they all knew each other. And we just agreed to like, Spike should direct it. And then, the crew that was in Chicago, they basically pulled it all together. and we made the first video, and that was actually Spike's, I think, first video that he ever directed. That for the first record by Wax.
And the other one I remember is you guys are all in the van. Didn't he direct that also?
He co-directed that with that kid Jake. You remember Jake from Squirt TV? Remember that show Squirt TV? It was out of New York. Everyone was on it.
Okay.
Anyway, this kid named Jake, I want to say Fogelness. I hope I said that right.
That was Who's Next, right?
Yeah, that was Who's Next.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that all led to us, ultimately we did the first record or the first video with Spike. And then ultimately later on when we got re-signed to Interscope, at this point, we went back to Spike to say, hey, now we're on Interscope and we actually have a budget. But at this point, he had already done the Sonic Youth video, the Breeders video. So now he's massive. He just did the Weezer video.
That Breeders video was huge.
Yeah, and at that point he did the Buddy Holly video for Weezer. So when we went, but the thing that was great about Spike was he said, "Hey man, if you guys can get it together and get your next record out, I'll do a video for you." And he didn't need to do it. He was at a point in his career where he could have said no, and then that's when he did the Guy on Fire video for us, and it just made the band even bigger.
Yeah, that was pretty. It
was crazy.
Yeah. So let me take a sponsor break here. Let me shout out a couple sponsors, and let's come back and we'll do Album of the Week with Sid the Kid. All right?
Awesome.
See you in a couple. Well, there you have it. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and our guest today is Mr. Joe Sib, comedian, musician, and co-founder of Side One Dummy Records. And we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, the Texas Silver Rush, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Chachos Tacos, Generation Records, 126 Hardcore Clothing, and come on now, Organic Grill. It's a vegan restaurant located in the East Village of New York City at 123 First Avenue, featured in New York Magazine, New York Times, and Veg News. Their dishes have won numerous awards, including Best Goddamn Veggie Burger. They make their own cheeses, sausages, and burger patties, and every dish on the menu can be made gluten-free. This year, they're celebrating their 23rd anniversary, and they're all about having a great time while enjoying amazing, clean food. They have now fully reopened for business and look forward to seeing you. Get in touch with them, order some great food at www.theorganicgrill.com. Got to shout out Vlad. Also, whenever we do the shows at the Bowery Electric, he sends down a couple trays of really great burritos and stuff. So anytime you play one of our Bowery Electric shows, you get fed some organic grill. And you know what? How about Generation Records? Since 1992, Generation Records has been a mainstay of the New York metropolitan area music scene. Today, they offer a diverse selection of new and used rock, jazz, indie, hip-hop, punk, hardcore, metal, blues, soundtrack, and reggae LPs, as well as T-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia and will pay you top dollar for them. I have a visual for that, actually. There is a visual for that. Get a load of this. So, I got a call. I talked to Mark Yoshi at Generation. He said, I got a call from somebody that watches your show. And I took a trip upstate New York, and I bought a bunch of stuff from this guy. So when I say they buy used record collections and music memorabilia and will pay you top dollar for them, house calls. This motherfucker will even get in a car and drive to you. House calls made for large collections in the tri-state area. I guess this was worth the trip to upstate New York. Call or email generationrecords@gmail.com. Follow them on Facebook, on Instagram. So obviously, if you know what we're looking at here, yeah. Yep, here's another one. He sent me a couple of pictures. Actually, no, I took this off his page, but I guess I don't know all the I guess we'll ask Sid when we bring him on, but all the sort of minutia. But that Cro-Mags record has the uncensored sleeve, which I guess is the original, pretty rare, and worth a little something. And here isn't there one more? Guess that's it. Yeah. So, Generation Records. Yeah, it was a great Yeah, Ron Grimaldi makes house calls. There you go. So yeah. So anybody out there, let's say you're watching the show and you're like, you know what? I don't want this crap in my house anymore. I want to get a couple bucks for it. Call Generation Records. If you got something, there he is. I'm in the South Bronx now on a house call watching your show. There he is. Mark Yoshi, Generation Records, one of our beloved sponsors. Wasn't there a third picture you sent me? Where the hell? Hold on. There was a third picture. Let me find this thing. Hold on. Hold your horses. Ah, here it is. Here it is. Here's the third picture from the Mark Yoshi Hall. Okay. Bam. Right there, right? That is I guess that's the original Rat Cage Records Victim in Pain agnostic front. So big score for Generation Records. I'm glad there's a cause and effect here on this friggin' show. If you are thinking for some bizarre, strange reason, you know what? I fucking love this show. How can I support it? Funny you should ask. There is a Patreon page. Please support the show. There's a $2 tier, a $5 tier, a $10 tier, so on and so forth. It's our community within the community. This is what enables me to do this fakakta show. So please. And people come and go. There's an ebb and a flow to this thing. You know, people join Patreon, they leave, they come back. Other people, but listen, I'm a fortunate guy. You know, people support the show, and I really appreciate it. It affords me the time to be able to do my homework and make these shows great. So please, if you can, join Patreon, support the show. There's also a PayPal address there, Stone4124 at AOL, if you want to make a donation on PayPal. Let me just mention the next 4 shows while we're at it, and while I'm hawking you about joining Patreon. The next 4 shows coming up Sunday, April 24th is the L'Amour retrospective with DJ Alex Kane. We're going to bring a couple guests on. We're going to talk about legendary Brooklyn club L'Amour's. Excuse me. Wednesday, April 27th, Carl Kennedy from the Rods. He was also the Megaforce in-house record producer. He produced the early Anthrax stuff, Blue Cheer and Overkill. Super stoked on Sunday, May 1st, Mr. Caves, graffiti legend, will be on the show. And then Sunday, May 15th is the Life of Agony, Sound of Scars documentary show with director Leigh Brooks, Joey Z, and Alan Robert. Now, I have yet to watch the Life of Agony documentary, but I will be watching it before the show and taking much notes for it. Yeah, people. I hear that the Life of Agony documentary is great. I've heard that from a lot of people. Every show is awesome. Thank you, Barefoot Mailman out in Jersey. I appreciate it, man. And yes, L'Amour's. And what do we call girls that hung out at L'Amour's? Anybody? Post it up. What do we call girls that hung out at L'Amour's? All right, that said, what else? Think we got it. Let's bring on. Let me clear the deck. Sound of Scars was great. Yeah. All right. No, we didn't call them broads. And don't be nasty. Girls that hung out at L'Amour's, he called them lovely young women. L'Amour's girls were called L'Amorsels. Yeah, there you go. L'Amorsels. L'Amorsels. There you go. Everybody's getting it now. L'Amorsels. You know who would be apt to talk about that when we get him on the show, because it's going to happen, is Evan Seinfeld, from formerly of Biohazard. We'll talk to him about L'Amorsels. That said, let me clear the deck. Let me bring our guest Joe Sid back on. Hey Joe.
What up?
And what up? And let me bring on the one, the only DJ Sid the Kid. What's up, brah?
What up, Drew?
What's happening, man?
Hey, Joe, what you know?
What up, Sid?
Chilling. Getting through this whole doo-doo outside thing. We're getting, but shows are happening. Everything's happening. Hopefully get to see you at the end of the month, making everybody in Brooklyn pee their pants.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'll come out to that. So here we go. Sid the Kid did his homework. Ladies and gentlemen, album of the week. Bam.
Boom.
Go ahead, Sid. You got the floor.
Now, before somebody in the chat says this, yes, we have covered this record, but there's more to this record than some of you don't even know. So really quickly, of course, I'm going to run through this again. This is the Clash's third studio album entitled London Calling, which I believe was recorded from August to November of 1979, then released on December 14th of the same year. CBS and Epic released this. Guy Stevens produced it. I believe this is recorded at Wessex Studio in London. Now, for those really quickly, this is one of the most iconic records in punk history. But for those really thinking about it, when you really listen to this record, it's not just a punk album because they did a lot of different genres they mixed up. You had a little bit of lounge jazz. You had a little bit of R&B, New Orleans R&B, in fact, a little ska, a little rockabilly, a little reggae. They did a lot to this record that, a lot of people didn't see come out the gate, because even though the London Calling single came out a week prior to its release, people thought, oh, this is just the tame track of the record. But that's how they kind of set the tone for the whole record itself. Now, obviously, this photo is beyond iconic as well. And this was, I believe, at the Palladium when I believe their second U.S. tour, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Very good, Sid.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Penny Smith did the photography for this.
Very good, Sid.
Now,
you're right.
Well, really quickly, one little nugget about Palladium. Even I didn't know this.
And do you know who that is on the cover, Sid?
Oh, come on, Paul Simon. Good bass players, no bass players. Come on now.
Okay. Smashing that Fender Precision. I don't know if he played a Precision or a Jazz. P bass. Yeah.
A couple years ago, while I was in London, they had the London Calling exhibit, and they had that there in every little piece. I should have sent you photos for that, Drew, but such a last minute thing. But the venue itself, the Palladium, is synonymous. If you know New York, you know this venue. I believe it opened up in 1927 and closed in August of 1997. So it had a pretty damn long run. Lou Reed recorded there. Jesus Christ. Like Frank Zappa did a double live record at that venue. Jesus Christ. Mountain did a live record in that venue. It's a very well-known thing, but it kind of sucks. It's obviously changes.
And you know what's sitting there, what sits there now?
Do we have to tell them, Drew?
It's the NYU dorm, right?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, go on.
Not so great, but just the fact that simply, this record is such an iconic record within itself. The Undertones even opened up, though. They were touring with the Clash during this tour as well.
I did not know that.
So, yeah, it was. I can't remember the very first opening act, but the Undertones were the opener for this show. My cousin was at this show before he,
Oh wait, I have the back cover as well. Hold on. Great.
Yeah, Palladium. For those who know, and I know this is on the internet somewhere. It's a really big show happened, I believe, in June of '92. I want to say, and it was one of Agnostic Front's last shows at the Palladium, and a quote unquote riot almost broke out. But that's a whole nother story, which the video is very self-explanatory, and I won't get into why.
Good work, Sid.
Again, this is an iconic record within itself, people. If you haven't listened to it, after the show, give it a fucking listen.
Everybody, come on. Joe, is this a record that resonated for you?
Oh, absolutely, man. The Clash, that was the first record that, the self-titled record, that was like the gateway record for me and all my bros. Like I remember the guys in the Swinging Utters, Kevin Wickersham, the original bass player, and Johnny, the singer, still for the Swinging Utters. We all discovered the Clash, like I want to say on the same day, because the cassette for that self-entitled record, we bought at a flea market. There was this market they used to have on Saturdays, and we bought this cassette for like $3. So like that led us to become a huge Clash fan. So this particular record, this record for me, man, it's like, you know, if I only had to pick one record, you know, like I'm a huge fan of, Give 'Em Enough Rope. Like I love all that, but like this record to me is definitely the record that if I can only grab one of them, I'm going to grab this because I mean, you can't go wrong with Rudy Can't Fail. You can't go wrong. You know, I mean, dude, a go-to track for me is Revolution Rock, and that's the last song. I love that. You know, Death or Glory. I mean, that's
Yo,
song,
the right profile.
Yeah, right profile.
Oh, God.
And of course, Guns of Brixton, like that
Guns of Brixton,
that bass is all there.
That.
You know,
exactly.
But yeah, you know, like I love the lyrics to Death or Glory. You know, the Card Cheat's a great song. I mean, this whole record is just from start to finish, it's flawless. You know, and like Sid said, you know, Revolution Rock is so different than Brand New Cadillac, and Brand New Cadillac is so different than London Calling. You know, it's just the whole record is just all over the place.
And then you know, Train in Vain, right? Christopher Valdez says, of course, the hidden Mick Jones track.
Yeah,
you know, Train in Vain, which I forgot what the story is. Why Train in Vain? I think maybe they recorded it the last second and put it on there, and that the covers, the everything was printed already. But yeah.
So I would have to say though, like between Rudy Can't Fail and Death or Glory, that's like those are my two jams off that record, go-tos. And Revolution Rock, love.
Well, for me, I got to say that this is a huge record for me. I'm a huge Clash fan. The Clash, you know, were and are big in my world. Big influence on me. I saw them play a bunch of times, and I just want to point out that Rolling Stone named this record the number one record of the 1980s of the decade. Wow. This was number one record of the decade in a Rolling Stone.
And again, and funny enough, this came out in '79.
Yeah, I think they mentioned that a little bit, but it I guess they called it the number one record of the decade. It was an important record when it came out. It just great, man. I'm just a huge Clash fan.
And also it's like one of those kind of. I was going to say too, Drew. It's one of those kind of records like that. You know, a lot of the music, you know, that comes out in different decades. You know, when you listen to it now, it might not hold up. You know, to the, you know, sonically or even musically. And I'm sure, you know, Sid DJing all the places you DJ, it's like you still put that record on, it still sounds good. You know, like sonically, it's amazing. You know.
Yeah. I mean, and people who weren't even born, they just hear the name. They're like, yeah, this band, this song. But when, depending on which track is on London Calling, they'll know it. They'll just know it automatic.
I'm just a Clash freak, man. You can't even fuck with me when it comes to the Clash.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'll get crazy with you, man. I mean, with about if you want to go deep on some Clash shit. But hey, Sid, well done. And you got your show today with one of our.
Another legendary person, which over a year and a half I've been working at this, Drew.
Yeah, good.
A year and a half is finally going to happen, and you know, I've been going back and forth with him actually even before the show just to make sure everything is tech check rap, you know, and you know, check it out, guys. Go to bigxlr.com/SDK sound.
Roger Moret from Agnostic Front's going to be on your show.
And show starts at 7:00 Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And if you have Instagram, and I know a lot of you knuckleheads do, go follow Roger over at Roger Moret or me at Syndicate_Sound System. We're going to go on a little bit after. We'll have Roger on a little bit after 7 because a lot of the songs Roger picked, even I was blown away. And I talked to Drew really quickly about this. Look up a band called White Pigs. That's all I got to say.
All right.
A very unusual name for a band, but when you hear that 7-inch, and Roger spoke about this on another interview a while back, I finally got it, and it blew me the fuck away. Like, holy shit. So one of those tracks to be on there, the usual New York hardcore shit, and a few surprises here and there. So
right, thank you, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Later, cheers, all right, later, guys.
Later, brother.
You know, while we're here, someone's asking, is Sandinista a bit too much? Let's do a little Clash rap for a second. I mean, I listened to Sandinista again recently. What can I say? I just love it. Yeah, it's all there with warts and all the weird shit, a couple tracks that are just backwards but Sandinista, like the thing with Sandinista to me is like it's 3 records, and it could have been it could have been, if it was a double record, it would have been really great. If it was a single record, it would have been mind-blowing, iconic. But they went as 3 records, and everything's on there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think even like Joe Strummer said that they went too far with it. That you know that they because he said at that point they were just creating so much music that, which is amazing because for a band that was only in existence for like what 5 years, they put out so much music. You know, I'm looking at the songs on there right now. I mean, obviously, Somebody Got Murdered. That's, you know, a song that we all love. You know, another tune on here, Police on My Back, amazing. You know, love that. The Call Up, I love that. You know,
what's the Mick Jones one with what's it? I think Ellen Foley sings it with him. Keep going through them. Keep going.
Let me see. I'm looking here. Gosh, they have them all listed right here. I mean, another one that I love on here is where is it? Right there. It is Rebel Waltz. You know, that's a great song.
Oh God, that's great. Do 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 do.
Hitsville.
Whew! When the Hitsville hit UK.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Phew.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, I would say, you know, I listed off 10 songs, Magnificent Seven. There's, you know, there's
the Crooked Beat, One More Time.
Yeah, yeah.
Jesus.
You know, there's an amazing. But I think like
Street
I don't
Parade.
know. For me, it's like the Clash. You know, if there's one band that if you had all my records laying there and you said, okay, you can only take one thing with you, I'm going to grab all my Clash stuff just because I think there's going to be a different record, you know, Black Market Clash. That's like one of my favorite records, man. I could listen to that all day. Then Give 'Em Enough Rope, I love. The first record I love.
You know, when I'm going back a couple of years here, when my kid was growing up, and we used to listen to your DVD. I'm not sure it was one of your early sort of I don't know if you want to call it storyteller type thing.
Oh, it was the first thing I put out. It was True Stories, Bad Ideas.
Yo,
yeah,
and you tell the story about when you worked at the place on Sunset, the Tropic. No, at Duke's.
Yeah,
yo, you walked at Duke's.
Yeah,
and you tell this incredibly. It was so heartfelt. This story you tell, it really touched our hearts, man. That story you told about, you know, all of a sudden in Duke's, when you were like the maitre d' seating people, you turn around and it's Joe Strummer.
I mean,
that was such that was so like, and then
he was with his family.
Yeah.
The best part of the thing that happened was, you know, I was in Wax at that point. I'm 24 years old, and my gig was to give people menus when they came to the restaurant, you know? I walked down there, and every day, you know, different people were coming in. It's on Sunset Boulevard. And at a certain point, I go down there, and I'll never forget it. This family's down there, and I walk in there, and he turns around, slick back hair. He has like a Hawaiian on. And I'm just like, no way, Joe Strummer right now, just in front of me. Well, and I remember I gave him the menus, I sat him, and I was just so blown away that I was seeing him in person. And he came up to get some crayons and paper for his kids. He was totally in dad mode, which at that point I had no idea what it was, you know. And as any father knows, when you get to the restaurant, you're like, okay, let's get something for the kids to do. Yeah. And he sits down and he comes back up to the register again. And the woman that was working with me was like, I don't know who you are, but this guy's freaking out. And I was so embarrassed. And he was so cool. He was just like, what's your name? I'm like, I'm Joe. He's like, oh, awesome. What's up, Joe Sib? And he's like, Joe Sib, great. You know, what do you do?
And then you ran into him.
I ran into him on my 24th birthday. It was so he came there. It was the summertime. My birthday's in August. Fugazi played the Palladium that night on my birthday. I found $100 bill. I said, let's go to the bar. We all go to Smalls on Melrose. We walk in. It was about 4 weeks since I had met Joe at the restaurant. At this point, everyone's going, Joe Strummer. And he's over in this booth and he's holding court. It's not dad at all. It's not him with his kids. He's sitting at a table. He's got a full group of people around him. Everyone's talking to him. And I've had a couple drinks, and I'm like, wow, I wonder if he'd remember me, because everyone's afraid. And I kind of, like, it's a scene out of a movie. I kind of pop my head in through the crowd, and as I look over, we make eye contact, and he looks at me, and he's like, Joe Sib from Dukes. And I just look, and he looks at me, and I'm like, yeah. And he's all, get over here.
Get over here.
Yeah. And, you know, next thing I know, he clears the table. He has some kind of handler with him. He says something to him. Everyone gets kicked out. He goes, is your band here? And I say, yes. He goes, get him over here. And then we all were standing in front of Joe Strummer, and he said, you look like a band. I love this, you know. And we sat down, and I remember our bass player was on the left, I was on the right, and the guitar player and drummer were out there, and we just start talking and drinking. And I basically, you know, I said, gosh, Joe, there's so many questions we want to ask you, but we don't want to be punishers. And he looks at me and he goes, ask me anything you want. That's why we did it, you know? And that night, me and our bass player just, we grinded him. We talked about everything down to how long it took to record the first record, what was going through when they were doing London Calling. And that was where the Sandinista thing, where he said, yeah, you know, we just got carried away. We just started putting out everything. And we talked about that. And I remember that night, they go last call, and we all walk out, you know, arm in arm, you know, just Strummer in the middle, and he's got our arms, and we're just, thank you so much, Joe. And it was my birthday. And and then I remember as he turned away, he started to walk away, and he turned back around, and he goes, hey, I'm going to be coming back with the Pogues. And I go, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, Shane can't get into the country, so I'm going to be singing for the Pogues. And then we were like, no way. And, you know,
I saw that. It was pretty good.
I have a recording of it. And
they did I Fought the Law and London Calling.
Yeah.
It was good.
It was great. So then, that was it. But
that's a great story.
He was so solid.
Yeah, that's a great. And speaking of sort of that sort of generation of iconic guys, what's going on here?
Oh, wow. That's at the Continental Divide.
Here in New York.
Yeah, here in New York, Continental, Trigger's old place.
Yeah.
Is the Continental still around?
No, they tore it. They actually, those little, there was like the Continental, and there was like a McDonald's. And
that pizza place.
Pizza, and then on the corner was like a newspaper candy place. All those little one-story buildings, they eventually bought them all out, and they tore them down, and right as we speak, they're building a friggin' NYU monstrosity there.
Oh wow. Yeah, so that was so this show, this is my band 22 Jacks, and we came through to play the Continental, and back there in the red shirt is our original guitar player, and that's Chris Shiflett from the Foo Fighters. So he went from 22 Jacks to the Foo Fighters. So that 22 sorry, he went from, it was 22 Jacks and No Use for a Name. He was in our band. He did time, obviously tons of time with No Use for a Name, and then he was in 22 Jacks, and then he ultimately joined the Foo Fighters. So he's playing guitar right there. And then you got Joey Ramone, and we're doing Danny Says at the Continental, and it was awesome. Yeah, I was, I'm in heaven at that point.
That is great. Yeah, it ended up, Trigger played out his hand, and that was that. Here's another, and let's get into Side One Dummy a little bit.
Sure.
But here you are with another one of our good friends, our really patron saint of our Bowery Electric shows, and that's Jesse Malin.
I love that photo.
Yeah. Is this what's going on here?
What's going on there is, so Jesse had to do a photo shoot while he was in LA, and Side One Dummy Records, is located, was at this point we were located in Hollywood, and he's like, hey man, can we do this photo shoot at your office? I go, yeah, sure. So he's taking all these photos, and Jesse's like, he was like the best man at my wedding. I mean, I always say, like, if I've ever had a brother, it's Jesse. I mean, we've.
Oh wow. I didn't know you guys were that close.
Oh yeah, I met him when I was in Wax. Degeneration had just started. They were doing shows. My friend Daniel Ray, who was tight with the Ramones, had produced a Wax record. Yeah. And he was like, you got to meet my friends in Degeneration. I was like, really? He goes, yeah, they're crazy. They'll light the bar on fire. And I was like, what? Like, he kept telling me all night, they're going to light the bar on fire. And I thought it was just like an East Coast expression.
Yo, we're
Sure
gonna
enough-
light the let's go. We're gonna
Yeah.
light the bar on fire.
Sure enough, at a certain point, we're out drinking, and I look over and the bar's on fire. And Howie Pyro's standing there with a match and a bottle of Bacardi. And I was like, oh my God, these people really are lighting the bar on fire. But Jesse and I just became really good friends. And, we just had a lot in common. And we just, I don't know, we just had that moment where we've just been friends. I mean, I talked to him, a couple days ago. Whenever I'm in New York and he's on the road, I'll stay at his pad. But that photo right there, I always love because he's doing a photo shoot and I just grabbed the guitar and jumped in there. He just has that look on his face like, what are you doing? I love it.
How did tell us about Side One Dummy? How did it come about, and how have you made it for, what is it, 22 years now?
28.
28.
Yeah.
So how did it come about? And let's hit a couple. What are a couple high points for us?
It came about out of necessity. It came about because my partner and I, Bill Armstrong, who've been partners with each other for the entire time, we just, at that point, we were roommates. I was going to start my own label. And when I say label, put out some 7 inches.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then you never anticipate it's going to turn into what it does. And
Sure.
then basically my partner, Bill, was going to start his label. His label was going to be called Dummy. My label was called Side One. So we were like, let's just, put them together.
That's
2 guys,
funny.
Yeah. And then I'd say, when Bill and I started Side One, all that we really cared about was we just wanted to put out music that we loved, and we wanted to, we were 2 guys that just loved music. Our common bond was Black Flag, like Bill grew up in Santa Barbara. I grew up in Santa Cruz, San Jose. So, there was a lot of common thread between the 2 places, but we both loved everything from, Van Halen to the Ramones to Black Flag. So I just, he came from the skateboard culture. I came from that culture. And when we started talking about doing something together, it was like, let's do it. And it was only because we were living together. Like we never we're like, oh yeah, this is something we're going to do for, this is something we're going to do for our existence, something we're going to do to take care of our families. It was just we wanted to put out good music. And then of course, as you start doing it and it started connecting and we started signing more and more bands. But then when we signed Flogging Molly and that just blew up, that was really,
what was that? Was Flogging Molly sort of the aha moment where it's like,
oh yeah,
because I know you put out like 7 records of 4 studio, 3 live, and you put out the album Float, which was a big record for them, right?
Yeah, huge record. Debuted
number,
I think it debuted like number 2 or 3 on the Billboard. Yeah, that was
a huge record.
Flogging Molly was an aha moment because at that point, we're trying to put out records by, we're putting out at that point, Epitaph Records is happening, Fat Records is happening, and Bill and I aren't Brett Gurewitz or Fat Mike. We were just 2 guys that really loved music, and what those labels would bring to the table. If you signed to them, you would get to go on tour with Bad Religion. If you signed with them, you go on tour with No Effects. We didn't have that to offer. What we had to offer is we had to offer is like, we'll kick ass and we'll do everything that we need to do to make your band as big as possible. So I think what ended up happening when we signed Flogging Molly, Dave King, the singer, always says they needed a chance and we needed a chance with a band to get that opportunity. And it was the perfect match, and it really exploded. And what ended up happening after that was we had the opportunity to sign more and more bands. And then the next band.
Didn't Gaslight Anthem, same sort of situation, sort of came in. And I don't want to say like came in sort of, put in deep roots and then sort of went on to something else. Is that fair to say?
Well, I would say with Gaslight Anthem, at the time that we signed them, they had a record out already, and the record was great, but they weren't Gaslight Anthem yet. They were just a band. They had been to Europe, I want to say a few times. They had toured the United States. Like the first time I saw them, in LA, it was probably in front of 25 people, and then I went to San Diego to see them, and it was just I just remember what I loved about Gaslight was they were first of all, with Benny the drummer, like we connected because he had roots in hardcore, and then Brian Fallon and I connected because, you know, he had just loved music, and then the two Alexes, it was just a really cool, because everyone wanted to sign that band. And when Bill and I started talking to them about making a record together, they had been around enough, but they really needed, I think, a platform and they needed the right opportunities. But, you know, I wish I could sit here and say, oh my gosh, you know, Gaslight Anthem, you know, we did this and we did that. But the bottom line is this: Gaslight Anthem made everything in their career happen, because when they made the 59 sound, that is a flawless record from the moment you start it to the moment it ends. Like for me, when I think of like a London Calling or a record, you know, like that, like Gaslight Anthem is definitely a band for me that I never had worked with a band that had a record from beginning to end, no filler, just perfect. Every song stood on its own, and the record was so good that all Bill and I and the people at Side One Dummy it had to do, it was really simple, and it was not to fuck it up. That was all we had to do.
Did you feel that way going into it? Like listening to it, like, I mean, do you have those ears? Like listening to it, you're just like, I love this. This is great. This could really be something.
I knew it was. The first time I ever heard the record, when it was finished, you know, I've told this story a million times. The only record I've ever worked on where the singer and you know, Brian came to me and he goes, "Hey, I want you." You know, they were living in LA. They were finishing the record, writing it. They were still writing it. They were performing it with Ted Hutt, the producer. They were doing all the pre-production, and Brian was coming into Side One every day, and it was like every day him and the band would write a new song, and I was like, wow, like they're really taking advantage of this time with Ted Hutt to really write as much as they can. So they were just about to go in the studio to make the entire record, and Brian said, "Hey man, can you come down to our rehearsal space? I want to play you what we've got." And he meant live. I go, "All right, cool." So Bill and I go down there, we sit down, and Brian turns around, he's got his guitar on, and band's all there. And it was like a presentation. He says, "Hey, we want to play you the record in its entirety." And I was like, and I looked at him, I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? You know, like we haven't recorded it." He goes, No. This is the order the songs are going to be after we record it. And this is the way it's going to be presented. Wow. And in my head, you know, I was like, wow, I love his attitude, but you know, this is where X amount of years of being the record guy and putting out records, I was like, I'm going to let him think that, but I've done enough records to know it's not going to go down like that.
Yeah.
Buddy.
Okay, buddy, go ahead.
Yeah. And exactly. And, but you don't vocalize that. You go, yeah, sure. Let me hear it. So he gets up there, he starts out 59 sound, digs into it, plays the entire record all the way to the very end. I'm like, wow, this is great. Now, fast forward, they go into the studio. They stay in the studio for the couple weeks with Ted Hutt. Ted Hutt was the producer.
Right.
And I remember, we're going down there. I actually sung backups on one of the songs. Dickie sung backups. It was great. We go down there. They finish the record. Now it's the end. And Brian, now we go to the studio, and he's like, "I want to play the record from the beginning to the end, and I want to get your thoughts on it." Sure enough, it's the same order as it was in that studio when they played it live. And when they got done, I just sat there, and Bill and I looked at each other, and we just both said to each other at the same time, like, damn, how did he do that? Like, he's right. Like there's no way to change it, like there's no way to change any order or any segue into any other song. And that record, and like, I'll say this, when that record came out, I remember it was right around the summer, and I was in Santa Cruz, and my kids we kind of rented this beach house, and a buddy came over, and I said, "Hey man, I want to play you a new record that's going to be coming out on Side One Dummy." And he said, "Oh, great." And I remember I put that on, and like, normally when you put a record on, your friend starts to talk over it, or I'll never forget, like, the record drew him in, and he didn't talk. And then at the end, he was like, Jesus, who is this? And I was like, it's a band called Gaslight Anthem. And I remember in the back of my mind going, wow, like here's a guy I grew up with, and we just stopped talking and he just listened to, 40 minutes or whatever, how long that record is. And I knew then, I was like, you know what, we definitely got something, but I did not know that Gaslight Anthem was going to turn into the band that they turned into and have the impact that they've had on people's lives. I mean, I did not anticipate the sheer influence that they have on so many individuals. I mean, to this day, if I'm doing stand-up in a club, people come up to me all the time and they just go, hey, look, man, we came to see you do stand-up, but we got to say to you, Gaslight Anthem, I mean, that first record, the second record thing. And I'm like, it's still to this day. It's always bands like Gaslight, Flogging, Go-Go Bordello. It's like those top three.
Roy Ramone, our good friend, says, I wish there was a full-blown doc about the making of 59 Sound. The oral history article about the making of it was fascinating. Man, what an album.
Yeah, the oral history article that came out on the 10-year anniversary was super cool. What was even crazier was, Drew, was that the band reunited to do this 10-year celebration of 59 Sound.
Right.
And everyone in the band sat down and they picked openers for the tour. Which is super cool. And I don't know if you've ever had Benny Horowitz on your show, but he's hardcore kid to the bone. I mean, he goes deep. You and him would go nuts together. And so Benny, they pick their bands, and Alex has picked their bands, and they all get together and they're picking different bands. And I thought it was so cool. I get a phone call from Brian and he goes, hey man, we're doing the 10-year anniversary. We're going on the road and everybody's picked a band. I said, really? And he goes, yeah, I picked you. I go, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, I want you to open up, I want you to do your stand-up and I want you to open up. I was like, really? And I was so touched because when I first started doing spoken word and stand-up, Brian would, he had me open up for him in LA. When I come to New York, he would come out to the shows. Still to this day, like when I went to New Jersey, he comes out and I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah, you just go out there and do your thing. And I was like, all right. And I remember I said this to him, I go, at this point, I'd opened up for some bands, and I realized, I said, I'll only do it, Brian, if every night you come out and introduce me.
Yeah.
So he says, yeah, no problem. I'll do it. So now fast forward, 10 months later, we're at the first show and he's like, all right, man, you ready to go? I go, yeah. And he goes, okay, cool. I go, whoa, where are you going? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, dude, you got to go out there in front of those people and tell them why I'm going on stage. And he was like, oh shit. So he'd walk out there every night. And I remember he's like, he would say to me, I can't believe I agreed to this, and I was like, he'd come out and the crowd would go crazy and he'd always introduce me. And I remember I had about 15 seconds to get that first laugh. And then once I got the laugh, I was fine.
I know this isn't what we're talking about, but this is just a very powerful photo.
Yeah.
And this is you. I mean, if you just look at the upper deck, just packed to the rafters in this place, this is you opening for Metallica, correct?
Yeah. I mean, saying it's me opening for Metallica is definitely a stretch. That would be so this is me on the road with Metallica, and I was lucky enough to be part of the opening act with comedian Jim Brewer.
Okay.
Jim Brewer is super tight with Metallica,
right?
And Metallica came up with the idea that they were not bringing a band, and they instead invited Jim to be the opening act. And I've been working with Jim, for the last 3 years. Another that's a great photo. Just another solid, human being. And Jim said to me one night, he said, look, I got asked to go on tour with Metallica. And I was like, amazing. And then, I was like, wow, that's going to be crazy. I was just happy because I'll get to go to a show. And then he said something that would change my life. He said, hey, look, they said I could bring someone. I want to bring you, are you down? And I was like, hell yeah. And, it was great because we put together a show that, we entertained it was between 23 and 25,000 people a night. And it was just so much fun. I always say, when people say, it's funny too, because the whole entire tour was filmed, and he's putting together like a documentary on the 6 months that we were out with them. And basically, it was like, all I can say, Drew, is, remember how we started like almost 2 hours ago with the picture of Ronnie Tannehill, the party? Remember the party at Ronnie Tannehill's house?
Course.
I'm telling you right now, this is just Ronnie Tannehill's backyard, but in an event. It was, but in an arena, because the attitude was the same. It was like, Jim and I knew Metallica, and we said, "Yo, bro, can we have them play your party?" Because we really made it. I would spin the jams. Jim would tell the stories. We had so much fun, and it was a real fun environment that you can tell by the crowd. They were into it. It was fun. And it was just like, it really reminded me of going back to the days of throwing a party at Ronnie Tannehill's place, except it was for 25,000 people in an event center,
At what point, going back, like at what point did you make the jump and say, you know what, I want to, I fronted a band, I got my label thing. Because I can relate to this to a certain extent, because I've done some improv stuff and some stand-up myself. At what point did you say, you know what, I think I got the balls to get by myself, to get in front of a bunch of people and try to make them laugh? Like, what was that like? What was that transition?
I mean, the transition for me it's really simple. I just, I loved Side One Dummy, and I loved being on the other side of the desk, but that wasn't the reason I started any of this. Like, I've always wanted, since I was a little kid, I wanted to be on stage. I loved music. I love singing in bands. I love the interaction with the audience. And what I realized right around the time I was like in my 30s was, when you're the singer of the band, no one's asking you to jam with them. If you're a drummer, yeah. If you're a guitar player, yeah. So then what I saw all my peers, Chuck Reagan, Joey from Lagwagon, all these guys, they were able to like pick up a guitar, and they were able to still do their art on stage. Whereas I'm like, you know what? I'm not the acoustic guitar guy. I can't do that. So then I was like, I got to figure out a way to get back on stage. But it was really a reinvention of like what I was going to do. And I knew I didn't want to start another band, and I knew that I couldn't do the acoustic thing. So I started messing around with stand-up and spoken word. And then what ended up happening was I just really dove into it, and I nerded out on it. I spent, I would say the first 10 years, I just really spent listening. And for the first time in my life, I was like, I'm not going to rush it. I'm not going to just try to jam it all together. I'm like, all that I wanted to do, and all that I've ever wanted to do, is I wanted to be a comedian that was good enough to go up on a lineup in between, say, 6 other comedians. And let's say those are seasoned comedians. And all that I ever wanted was that you would see my set and enjoy it as much as theirs. You might not know who I am, but you'd be like, hey, that one guy, I really liked that one dude with the slick back hair. I really liked his perspective. And that was my goal, and for the first time I was like, you know what? I'm just going to really, the thing I love about stand-up is, you can do stand-up until the end, because your perspective and what you're seeing the world as long as you can hold the mic in your hand, you can still be funny, and you can still, shed light on something that someone saw and thought one thing, and you look at it differently, and you're like, oh, wow, that is funny. Also, I love, when people laugh, I feel like we know this, no matter whatever you believe, like they were all cavemen, they're all sitting around. They're all sitting in their cave. They're all sitting at night. One dude all of a sudden invents fire. They're like, dude, that guy's rad. I love it, man. Like, bring that guy over. And then that they were sitting around the fire, and one guy was telling the story about him going after the dinosaur or whatever, and how so-and-so freaked out when it roared and fell down. And he's like, dude, don't tell everybody that. But everyone starts laughing. There's like a natural, like, it's like sex. It's like breathing. It's like an orgasm. Laughter is just something like you cannot know a language with someone. You cannot know anything about them. But if you're sitting on the train in Europe, in France, and someone walks through that door, slips and falls, everyone on that train laughs. They're like, oh, dude. And you might be laughing and not know the language, or, you know, like, oh, he speaks Italian, he speaks French, but it's a common language. So for me, laughter, when you make a room full of people laugh, it's for me, it's such a moment of we're unified and we're all laughing. And I just love the feeling I get. And I love looking out there and seeing people that I've never met laugh. And the best part is when you see someone laugh that I came on stage and they've already sized me up. They're for the most part, you know, when you come
we
on
all
stage,
do it. We all do it. I go to comedy shows. Yeah, right. Okay, come on.
Yeah,
really.
And the first thing is like, you know, I love more than anything when someone, you know, all the other people are laughing, and of course, and this might be just the punk rock singer in me. There's the one guy or the one woman or the one person that's they're on the fence. And as you're going and all of a sudden you hit them with that one line, or you hit them with this story, and they start laughing, and you're like, all right, you know, like I broke down the wall, you know? So it's like, I really feel that, I just really feel that laughter is this language that everyone gets their head around. And also I feel that it's, you know, I remember when I first started, I'll just leave it with this really quick. I remember when I first started, I used to do these open mics, Drew. And I would go to the open mic, and an open mic, for the people that know, you know, it is, but for the people that don't, an open mic is like, it's really like, you go there, it's to learn how to hold the microphone in your hand. And it's like, it's usually a bunch of comedians, and they're in this room, and it's a bar, and everyone's getting up there. No one's really laughing because it's comedians. So it's basically a comedian doing a joke in front of a comedian, but every once in a while there's some random people in there. But I remember going to these open mics, and some of them would be really, really just material that was so depressing and dark and sad. And they'd be saying really mean stuff on stage. And just like, I was like, wow. But because I'm like a people pleaser, I would like nervously laugh at it. Like I'd go, ha, like the guy would be like, and then the baby was dead, and I threw the baby. You're like, oh, okay, ha, 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 I'll laugh at that. And then I remember I would get home at night and I'd feel sick. And I remember I'm like, man, why do I feel ill? Like I wasn't nervous about being on stage. And all of a sudden it hit me. I was like, oh, because I was making myself laugh at something that's not funny. And I'm misusing that kind of gift and that eternal laughter that we all have in a way that isn't useful or isn't positive. And I remember at that moment, I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop doing that. And that to me really let me know the importance of laughter and the importance of humor and the importance of smiling. Like there's times someday where I'll be walking down the street and I'll catch a glimpse in a window, and I'm like not smiling, and I'll see myself, and I'll be like, oh dude, put a smile on, because it just changes the vibe of everyone coming towards you, you know? And I think that's important. So that's kind of my mission.
You're not a one-line dude, you know. You're a more of a storyteller.
Absolutely.
And, just sort of a personality, and I love that, man. Like I said, the Joe Strummer stuff that you and the stuff of growing up and all that. So did you gravitate to that? Was that the comfort zone? Sort of like, I could tell a story about me growing up. There was a lot of funny shit.
Well, you know, I think when I first started, you gravitate towards what you know. So I was like, oh, okay, I got a story about, you know, I have these stories about, you know, growing up in the music world, and I have stories about this and that. But then once I started getting into, you know, into stand up, I was like, all right, you know, if I'm going to do comedy in front of, you know, a group of people at the Improv or the Comedy Store or, you know, Funny Bone, I'm like, they're not going to necessarily understand the stories about Bad Religion or the stories about the Ramones. And the turning point for me was, that's when like I realized, well, you know what, I need to write material that everyone in the room could get their head around. And that was really the turning point for me, was getting a chance to really start writing material that everyone could get their head around. And a lot of times, you know, I'll get off stage and people won't know anything about my musical background, and they'll just know me from doing stand up. And that to me feels really good, because I want to be a comic, and I want to be a comedian that I can, like right now when I'm on the road with Lars Fredrickson. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of bits about, you know, getting a chance to open for Social Distortion, or the time I opened for Bad Religion and it didn't go well, or, you know, different stories like that I necessarily wouldn't do. But I also love the fact that, you know, tonight I'll be doing a show in Santa Cruz, and I won't talk about any of the music stuff. It'll all be just my stand-up.
Hey, let me take my last sponsor break, do a couple shout outs, and let's come back. We'll take some questions from around the world. All right?
Can I take a leak real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. You got a couple minutes.
Okay, cool. Thanks, bro.
Leak away. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Our guest today is comedian, musician, record label founder Jonze. Great show, great guy. We are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, the Organic Grill, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Chachos Tacos, Generation Records, 126 Hardcore Clothing, and the Texas Silver Rush. It's a jewelry design firm and boutique store located in the birthplace of the Texas country music scene in Fredericksburg, Texas. They specialize in working with musicians in all music genres to design and create unique one-off pieces, as well as style them for stage, album covers, promo photos, and social media exposure. Their client list includes Rock Roll Hall of Famers Greg Rolle, Ringo Starr, and of course, Agnostic Front. Information and online sales are being taken at their Facebook and Instagram page, and of course, www.thetexassilverrush.com. Come on now, DTFM Vinyl Distro. It's a record store that specializes in underground music, punk, ska, hardcore metal, and more. Located in the heart of Fargo, North Dakota's industrial district. Shop in person or online at www.dtfmvinyldistro.com, where the motto is death to false metal. Last, but certainly not least, New York Hardcore Comics opened in 2013, selling comic books, punk rock, and hardcore memorabilia, toys, statues, skateboard decks, tapes, vinyl, and all things horror. We love helping bands push their demos and new tracks, so please stop by and drop off your new music. We have in-store events like Magic the Gathering and Warhammer tournaments, plus meet and greets with bands and some live performances. Open 7 days a week and shipping worldwide. Find us online through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and eBay, located at 117 Main Street in lovely Dobbs Ferry, New York. www.NewYorkHardcoreComics.com. That said, I think we went through a lot. You know what? Cousin Joe's coming up on Friday, and we are going to talk quite a bit about this event that is coming up on Saturday, April 23rd. We will be talking about this big banger that's coming up in our beloved Tompkins Square Park. So we'll be getting down on Friday talking about this. Of course, this isn't even the updated one, actually. It's the Capturers, Cro-Mags Jam, Burn, Wisdom in Chains, Murphy's Law, and Madball. So this is in Tompkins Square Park. Cousin Joe is coming on Friday, and we're going to talk about that, as well as we'll do some of the reveal for the upcoming Black and Blue Bowl. What else? I want to thank all the Facebook pages that support this show and let me post on there. So big ups to all those Facebook pages that let me do that. And also, if you have, I know I'm preaching to the converted here, follow this show on Instagram. Pick up your phone right now, please, at Stone Films NYC. Also, if you're watching this in rerun, there is a subscribe button right there. Please subscribe to the show on YouTube. You will get alerts, exciting alerts as to when new shows are happening. There's also a merch line underneath there that I need to update. If you have any questions, post them now for our guest, Jonze. Please, anything. Post on up. Let's get down with that. And let's bring our guest back. Hey.
I took a leak. I feel much better, bro.
You know, when I took a leak, when Sid started the London Calling spiel, I fucking, when I took myself, I ran into the bathroom and took a whiz. You know? Yes, Lee Bundy. Thank you. It is a great show because we got a good old friend on here.
Thanks, Lee.
You know what I wanted to mention? I wanted to thank you for being a part of this film that I directed, which just was re-released, which is who the fuck is that guy? The Fabulous Journey of
Love
Mike
it.
Montago. You know,
I remember when you came to side one. That was great.
you were great in it, man. You were really
thank you.
great. And you know, and you had
I
a lot
love
of
Michael.
Yeah, you had a lot of great stuff to say. Like there was a lot of great stuff, and you know what was in there was really great. And the film is now, after doing those 3 years. Here's a great shot of you, me, and Alago right outside. There you go.
Oh, there you go. Love that.
Yep.
Yeah, that was great. I love. Yeah, Michael Lago, man. He's one of those guys that.
Yeah.
I mean, I love anything. Michael's one of those kind of guys that, like, anything he asks you to do, you just do it. And you know, he was such good friends with my buddy Arturo Vega, so like it was just a no-brainer. And I'm such a fan of. Yeah, that's a good shot. I'm such a fan of, you know, Michael's story, and it was just cool that you guys did that. I love the film too. I thought it was great.
Yeah, the film
did great. People love it.
Great. Chico asks if he could, and if it does exist, could he briefly run down the catalog of Frontline?
Real simple. It's there's only one record, Outside Your Window. That's it. It's on vinyl.
Right.
I Am Records, 6 songs.
There you go. Larry Kelly asks, do you have a Dwayne Peters famous skateboarder US bomb stories?
Oh my God. That's so funny because last night when I watched the Tony Hawk Until the Wheels Fall Off documentary, Dwayne is in it. And it's a great documentary. I highly recommend it. You know, my run-ins with Dwayne have just been over the years. You know, he's one of those kind of guys that you really can't be in California skateboard culture and punk rock culture without getting an opportunity to, you know, run into Dwayne. For me, you know, as a kid growing up, I just was such a fan of Dwayne skateboarding. You know, the model he had, obviously on Santa Cruz Skateboards, was such a legendary model. And he was one of those type of guys that as a kid, like I remember growing up and seeing Decline of the Western Civilization for the first time. And there's a couple clips in there where Dwayne is actually in the footage, you know, and I'm a little kid at this point. You're like, wow, like he's actually at the show. So yeah, I have nothing but love for Dwayne. And just there's only one Dwayne Peters. That's all I gotta say.
Yep. I want to shout out Gina and her mom that are in the car. Are you guys on 95 North? They say we're enjoying the show, though it's making the drive more enjoyable. So shouting Gina and her mom out.
There you go, Gina.
There you go. So I have a little, and we're winding it down here, but let me clear the deck because I want to ask. I have a visual for this too, and hold on. And the question is, would you make a GI Jane joke? And
wow.
this was very. I found this very sad and disturbing. This incident was very. I found it very sad. It just really, it really made me sad. Sad for comedians and sad for comedy in general. That it's at the point now where a comedian will say something and, you know, get up and it'll be answered in violence, and then literally 50% of the people in this country will say, "Hey, yeah, that was right on," you know, and that's very sad to me. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts, the whole thing is sad. Like, just looking at that picture, it's disturbing. It's sad. You know, it's sad for Chris. It's sad for Will. I'll just say that you can't hit people. You know, you just can't go up and, you know, hit someone in the face. I mean, that was the hardest part for me, to see that go down the way that it does. And I think on Will's part, I'm sure regrets, you know, that he did that, you know, and I'm sure, you know, because Chris and Will, they know each other. So it's one of those kind of things where at the end of the day, you know, whether or not you agree with, you know, what I'm not going to do is say, oh, Chris Rock, you know, he drew, you know, he crossed the line of what he said. That's up to your own interpretation, whatever you want. But the thing that I will say is that you can't go around slapping people across the face, because then you would, if as soon as we lose that in the world where we can just start hitting people, you know, on TV, you know, and just wherever, I think at that point we've just lost who we are as like human beings, because you just can't do that. Now, granted, you know, if you would have heard a story that Will went up to Chris at the party and said, "Hey, bro, you ever do that again, you know, I'm going to hit you," or, you know, or even at the party, like, "Hey man, I'm going to pull you over in this corner right now, and you and I are going to have a little conversation." You'd be like, "All right, okay, got it." You know, like, you know, you obviously struck a nerve. For me, seeing Chris get hit across the face like that, it's sad. That's all I got to say about that.
You know, I come from, you know, listen, I get it. You guys, you and me, we're like older, a little bit older these days, you know, and, you know, the kind of comedy that I grew up with and loved, I can't really use it as a yardstick. You know, I can't say, you know, my favorite comedies, you know, Blazing Saddles and I love Don Rickles, you know, and it's like, it just seems like in the world we live in, that stuff has absolutely lost its validity. And, you know, things change, I guess. And
yeah, the only feeling I had about the whole thing was I was just sad. You know?
Yeah.
I was bummed, you know, because I love both those guys. You know, I can't sit here and tell you I like one more than the other or this or that. I just, both of those people's careers, I love them. You know, watched Will Smith from the beginning, watched Chris Rock from the beginning. So I was just sad.
Yo, you want to talk about Will Smith from the beginning before we move on? I was the stage manager at Riverview Stage in Astoria, Queens, in, I guess, 1988 or 89 or something. I was the stage manager. So like I handled, you know, people would call and I'd be the liaison. "Oh, you're coming in, this and that. What do you need? Oh, you need a couple 10Ks, you need this and that, you know, blah, blah, blah." I was the stage manager. So I believe it was 88, a friend of mine, Scott Calvert, was directing it, and these guys showed up for the shoot. They showed up in a 15-passenger van, and one of the kids' fathers was driving, and they were on the stage, and they did a video called "Parents Don't Understand" on my stage. They painted the psych, and it was Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, "Parents Don't Understand." And I was there, literally there, saw them. I opened up the garage door. They came in with their 15-passenger van. Dad was driving, Will Smith, you know, Jazzy Jeff, a couple of their homies, and they did it. It was the first thing he ever did. And I was there. I was there to see the whole thing. I was the stage manager. Yeah. And we rehearsed. I was in Antidote, and we rehearsed on the stage. I have pictures of us in front of all, you know, the psych with all the writing on it.
Wow.
And, you know, I to see that, you know, in the infant, in the embryonic stage, and then to see that the other night, it's just like sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, right? It was just one of those things. Larry Kelly asks, your favorite comedian?
You know, I would say I'll give you two answers. Like one of my all-time favorites. You know, I got to go with Richard Pryor. You know, for him, for me, it was his. You know, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy. I loved both of them. I loved Richard Pryor. You know, of course, George Carlin, all like that, because that's the era that like my parents, my dad especially, turned me on to. You know, right now, you know, I talked about him earlier on the show. Like one of my favorite comedians is, you know, Kyle Kinane. I think he's just one of the funniest guys out there. I love his material. I would also say that, you know, there's so many comics that are out there that, like, I love Eric Griffin. I think he's super funny. He's, you know, one of those guys. You know, I love a lot of the comics that kind of dabble in that, you know, storytelling / you know, comedy. But then, you know, there's people, you know, like I love like Finesse Mitchell, you know, because he kind of talks about, he does storytelling growing up, stuff like that. But then there's you know, different types of comics, like, you know, I would say gosh, I'm spacing on his name right now. Oh my God, I just talked about him the other day. But a lot of great comedians out of New York right now, that are just crushing it. The comedy's in one of those great places where there's a lot of different voices, a lot of women that are super, super funny and just out there crushing it. And I just feel it like a lot of the shows right now, you're getting a lot of different voices from a lot of different backgrounds, and a lot of people just putting different takes on different premises that maybe you've heard before, but that you're hearing different takes on it now. Mark Norman, I love Mark Norman out of New York, love him. Theo Von, love him.
We went through a lot of photos. I have one photo left. What's going on with this?
That's when I went to college.
Is that right? And who's the guy in the picture with you?
That is my college roommate, and Jeff Lowenstein. Still friends with that guy to this day. And what I love about that photo is that was our first day that we moved into the dorms together. And as you can tell, he's got this is actually a funny picture, because the suit that he's wearing, the tie and the shirt, when we graduated from college, 3 years later, he was like, dude, what are you going to wear to the graduation? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, you can't just go in jeans and a t-shirt. I'm like, why not? And he's like, that suit that he had on, he gave to me to wear to our college graduation, like literally, 3 years later. And I found that photo, and, it got posted, and I was just like, oh my God, I love that.
That's awesome. Our friend Ryan Bland from Egg says, I had a short-lived music project with Benny and Alex from Gaslight Anthem right before they joined Gaslight. Joe, you're right. They are hardcore dudes 100%, and I love and miss them.
Absolutely. Yeah, Ryan. Yeah. If Ryan played with him, he knows. That was one of the things I think that I loved about Gaslight Anthem, is that Benny and Brian and both Alexes definitely, as their success grew, they definitely held on to that hardcore punk rock ethic of the way they treated their fans, even down to, the way that, a lot of bands will reissue a lot of material over and over, and just kind of whatever. And I remember Benny and Brian and the Alexes, both Alexes were they don't want to do that. They're very, very aware of how much their fans love the band and how important the band is that they definitely carry themselves in a way that makes sure that the fans are taken care of. And, even down to this reunion tour that they're doing, they're not saying, hey, we're doing a reunion tour. They're saying, no, we're back together. We're going to do this. Right. We're full time. Let's go. So
yeah, Manuel says, bought tickets to see Gaslight in October yesterday.
Absolutely.
That's cool. So hey, man, thanks for coming on the show. That was as good as I thought it was going to be.
Was it good? Great. Was it good, Drew? Are you good?
It was great, man. Listen. For me, it was an easy hang. It was and I needed one of those, bro, because a couple of the last ones have been a little challenging. So
thank you for having me, Drew. And you've always been so cool to me. And like I said, from when we met each other, man, it's been awesome. And I love that we've stayed in touch. I love that you're doing this. I can't wait to check out when you have Eugene on the show. That'll be awesome. And, once again, thanks for having me. And anyone that wants to, come out to a comedy show, I'd love to see you. Follow me on Instagram, Joe_Sib, SIB. And hopefully, Drew, you and I can cross paths when I'm out in New York at the end of this month.
Yeah, I might, maybe I'll come out to Garwood with a Lago.
That'd be great.
I like going to the sort of off the beaten path shows, I'll get in the car. I have a car, so I'll get in the car with a Lago, and we'll show up on sort of the off night in Garwood rather than
the show will be the Crossroads show. The Crossroads show will be great. I'd love for you guys to come out to that.
Okay, I'll talk to a Lago about it. And
awesome.
All right, man. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Drew, you're the best. Thank you so much, buddy. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Later, bro.
Well, there you have it. Another one in the books. Oh, well, a little late, Chucky. A little late with that one. But our guest today was Joe Sib. I noticed that the feed got blocked on Facebook. I wonder why. Maybe one of those videos? Your video is blocked and can't be viewed in 249 locations. The fuck did I play on the show that got the video blocked? Must be one of those videos did I play to open the show? That's the only thing I did. Bizarre. Bizarro. Anyway, Gina and Mom, I hope you guys are well on the highway there. Get home safe. Everybody else, there is a bonus show this Friday with Cousin Joe. We're going to talk about the Tompkins Square Park show as well as some reveal on the Black and Blue Bowl. So thanks a lot, everybody. Till next time, do good things. Good things will come to you.